We are going to put the word out and probably shock a bunch of people because we are a bit early this week. But I want to get things fired up and started ASAP because there is a lot to talk about. It has been a very crazy week. So, welcome to the Bonnet Chronicles. I am your host, Kalari GXC, and I just want to get started by saying that it's been a week, y'all. It really has. There's been ups, downs, in betweens, but I want to start off by saying that I know, I know that everything feels awful. We feel defeated for some because the messaging has been beating us up to feel that way. I know that those of us who think of ourselves as thinkers, especially those who are literally paid to, are feeling at a loss because none of this makes sense. I like to think as a history nerd that we are just living times that when I used to study this, especially in school, I wondered how the people thought, during times of plagues, during times of war, during times of really heavy conflict. How did those people feel? And then it dawned on me after reading a friend's post about, just trying to make sense of why we're like this right now. We're in those times in history. And the thing that gives me pause about that is the fact that even though right now it feels unending with the COVID stuff and the constant attacks on our reason and sanity from both conservatives and far left groups and being sandwiched in the middle and trying to figure out who's really on your side and who isn't, you can feel like this stuff is never going to end, but it does. Every time humanity hits a dark patch, every time our era hits these really dark, deep ages, whether it's war, famine, pestilence, any of those plagues, we tend to collectively come together and bring on a renaissance. And I know some people go, there's not gonna, it'll happen. This isn't the first time we've been ravaged by plague. Some of us are old enough to remember that before COVID, there was a thing called AIDS ravaging communities. So we have survived bad before, y'all. I know it feels like it's unending. I know it feels like it's never going to go away. And it doesn't help that we are in a digital age where people should know better. We are in a digital age where we can clearly see the bad at times. But we are assailed from several sides with misinformation, feelings over fact types, and it's up to us with common sense to navigate that and remember that even in our darkest moments, there is always light, there is always hope, there are always people who want better for all of us. And thank you, G. Feldman. Welcome to the chat. I just think that, especially after the last week, we get away from that feeling. There are so many fear mongers out there. There are so many people who bank on our fear and apathy. They just want us just thinking nothing's going to get better. And that hopeless feeling has been expressed by so many people that I started getting scared. I came back to social media because I seen way too many people I care about just expressing hopelessness. A lot of us have been locked away for a bit now. I won't lie, I've leaned into it. I actually wanted an excuse not to have to deal with people, and the world gave it to me whether I wanted it or not. But for a lot of people, this has been hard and heavy times. So I really feel, I don't know, culture, I don't think so. Because on the same level, it's global. The Black Death was global. I think what makes it worse for us right now is that we should have been smarter on this. So many people have conspiracy theories on why it spread so fast and, how can they have a vaccine? We are in a day and age where communication is so vital and people travel a lot easier than they did even back during the Black Death. And this spread because people were really being selfish. Unlike the plague, where humans had the excuse of not knowing and understanding how it would spread, not understanding basic medicine, the damage and effect to me is on par because we could have prevented it. We had the information. We had people telling us, not our past government, but we had doctors and people who were on the field telling us from almost the get what we could do to make it where it wasn't so bad. And people were selfish, and not just here in America. There were several countries that should have known better that didn't. So I'd say, historical wise, it's on par. But the whole reason why I bring up history, besides being a nerd for it, because it's my favorite topic, is these dark times are not this. It's going to happen. We are going to have good and bad. Sometimes natural events that harm us, sometimes preventable events that harm us. There is a narrative being sold to human beings that that's all we can have and that's all we can accept, and we have to get away from that. Messaging is everything. And welcome to the chat. Is it Colrotone or Colverton? Colverton? I want to say it properly. Colverton sounds good. But I just feel like the lack of hope seems to be the main message. Anger seems to be the main message. And we honestly have to stop amplifying that. And it's not easy, y'all. There are people out there purposely stoking the fires right now. They want people agitated. They want us all fighting each other. They want us to forget the bad that we should be paying attention to and only focus on the bad that they craft. And we've seen it this week. It was heavy this week. I'm going to pull up the main topic of tonight. Let me transition over. These young women. I did a thread on Twitter about these young women. I normally have no issue with these young ladies. They're all successful in their professions: journalism, sports talk, commentary, punditry. But for the longest, at least 2 years, I've been feeling a certain way. And I don't know if people understand this about me. While I identify and I call myself a part of the K Hive, unlike the people who are loud with the emojis, unlike the people who constantly follow suit when there's a new cutesy thing, even though I did put "the" in my name because like I said, history nerd. I tend to be on the down low watching for patterns. I'm the one that caught the farm of bots that were constantly jumping into people's mentions to cause fights. The Bernie brats who like to jump into people's mentions and argue so that you get engagement, and then they push their books or their YouTube on people. I tell you when I see patterns. And the problem I have with those young ladies, which, why they take that down? I don't know. My old age is starting to show. Uh, Bring them back up. The problem I have with these young ladies is the fact that I feel like there's been a coordinated effort to attack the most strongest, reliable voting bloc for a while now. And it started right around the primaries. And it seems to have gotten stronger between messaging on who's effective and what's effective, attacking a certain primary people versus propping up others who I were already side-eyeing based on their antics and background alone. There's a connection that these women have with a certain senator that I feel that some people were trying to shoo me away from, and I'm not going to be shooed away because I noticed the correlation between them and one of their friends who stepped in it big time this week, who was on that vacation with them. And when I see a connection, when I see a common denominator, for me not to bring it up, for me not to speak about it, no, that's not my thing. So I say it. You never know who's watching because my group looks for and brings receipts. It's funny because like this last couple of days, there were a lot of hot button topics, the Bernie brats were back out again. Some of you were arguing with people like this. Where's that? It's kind of ridiculous at this point. You have This dude. Notice how the K Hive disappeared during the primaries, dude. This guy literally said that our group disappeared during the primaries. Yet every other tweet since the last 2 years have been saying we do nothing but swarm people. We do nothing but swarm people. And it's like, you need to make up your mind. Either we're this big Illuminati group that attacks people, or we disappeared. But those are the kind of engagement bots that you keep arguing with, and then they go around and they say, see, the K-Hive's attacking me, so that these little trust fund journalists and people like Miss Hill can go around saying that we're jealous, we're attacking them, and stuff like that. Honestly speaking, this tweet set me off so badly. That's why I made the thread I made, because it's insidious. And I see this as a pattern of attack on the strongest voting bloc. Because if you can get your own to destabilize each other, if you can get your own to depress voter turnout, if you can get your own to question the one side that's actually fighting for us versus the side of obstruction, all you gotta do is sit back and reap the benefits. If we implode from within, if the 94% decides to just sit home because our sister girls told us nothing is gonna get better, what do you do? That's why I said we have to be mindful of the planners. And exactly, G Filming. And they spent the entire week playing the victim, and I get it. Having a hashtag about you, calling you the Cabo Crew, probably hurt your feelings, but you've got a cushion of economic security to fall back on and cry on. Your antics, as I said in my thread, hurts people like me who do not have a cushion when the GOP take control. And welcome to the chat, beanies. Thank you so much for tuning in. I feel like a lot of people think we were just picking on them, and they were trying to control the narrative because they have big platforms about how all of these people are just jealous. All of these people are just acting the fool because, whatever. And then Angela Rye with her tweet, let me see if I can even pull that mess up, because her tweet really, she's another one that I had hope for. And I think that's the part that hurts the most, is how many of these young ladies that we rooted for, that we stuck up for against Bernie brats and racists, who ended up being thoroughly, thoroughly disappointing in their response to us, and just how they handled the situation. It looks bad when every single person that went on that Cabo cruise, every single one of them had the same Dems in disarray or Dems not doing enough message. It felt coordinated. And then there one sister girl who I still don't know. I'm not going to fake that funk and act like I know her. She supposedly does a lot of voter registration agenda, but she had 2 times where she could have met with the vice president and then both the president and vice president, and she decided to protest them instead. There are a lot of stunters out there, and it's starting to get exhausting. There's just so much to scroll through. It was a busy week. Like, I honestly speaking, not finding it would not shock me. But Angela Rye was another one that tried to push this whole, you can't tell me that you can't pee on me and call it rain. And it was like, what are you talking about? Why are you even trying that? But that's the problem. These women get a platform, they get a talking point, and they run with it. Oh yeah, here we go. I found it. Beware black folks that sabotage progress by letting folks piss on us and call it rain. I'm going to show you this foolishness, because that's what it is. It's foolishness. So she's saying that this administration that already inherited a 4-year fuck show, didn't have a peaceful transition, came in with an insurrection attack on the Capitol, had to appoint people because it was chaos. People were not in positions where they were supposed to be. His appointees that did stay in position the whole 4 years, which wasn't many of them, I think it was just Homeboy and the HUD, completely destabilized all the stuff that was put in place by the Obama administration on purpose. Biden and Harris had to build from the ground up and deal with all the domestic and foreign problems that the Trump administration brought onto them. And still within a year, we had a vaccine rollout. And still within the year, we had an economic stimulus plan. We had the child tax care credit. We had the damage control, pulling out of the Afghan war, which the last fucking guy started, but people want to just blame Biden. Oh, he should have did it better. There was no better way to pull out of Afghanistan. I'm sorry, podcast bro, that you feel like you understand war a bit better because you played Call of Duty a bit longer. But there was never going to be a peaceful resolution to pulling out of that war. And you've got women like Angela Rye, who I used to respect. I used to prop her up every time she was on CNN, giving fire during the Trump days, or the really dark days, as I like to remember them. And then she ended up being whole ass disappointed. That's why I say, beware. Your faves are often problematic. Joy Reid's another one. She was somebody I really respected. I rooted for her show, even though she had very problematic issues. Problematic issues with the LGBT, problematic issues with anti-Semitic comments. She has had issues. And I can't just keep ignoring somebody because we're supposedly sister girls. She ain't no sister to me. I have watched her use her platform as a stepping stone to constantly stream negative talking points. Almost right-wing talking points. And you have to wonder why. And then when they all go together to Cabo and come back with literally the same messaging, Tiffany Cross. Come on. Tiffany Cross used to be fire, y'all. When I would watch her pundit on things, when I watch her do election analysis on things, she was on point, and I get it. It's gonna sound like, well, if they're not saying only what you want to hear. No. Let me make this clear. I know that some people always accuse those who want fair dem messaging as wanting the echo chamber. No. I want the same grace they gave to that orange turd. All that fire and all that accountability is coming forward for an administration that's only been here for a year. They didn't have any of that for 4 years. For this administration that was a revolving door of jobs, an open door of corruption, and brought death. So excuse me if I am working hard to remind people of what we've been through and what we could end up losing on top of that if we sleep on this. Because some people want to go, well, the Dems should do this and the Dems should do that after a year without realizing that we have a technical Senate majority, which means it's not a full majority unless the vice president weighs in and votes. And even then, we don't have every Dem senator in line because we are not a groupthink party. Whether you hate Manchin or Sinema, because Sinema, I'm going to talk about her tonight too. Whether or not you think the squad are a waste of space, which I do, the fact of the matter is Democrats are not going to all fall in line. It's not because they're in disarray. It's because we're human beings and we're not one of those parties that will just align under something just because we got a D by our name. And I'm sorry. I know some people want us to be more like the GOP. You say it all the time. It's in your messaging. Some of you don't even realize how much you parrot right-wing talking points. It's why I've been fighting back on the narrative that we need fighters. And this is coming from people I respect. So it's even harder because it's like it's seeped in. It's in y'all's pores now. To the point where even talking to you gives me a headache. Because I wish the Dems would just fight harder. Who says they're not? We have competent legislators. Yeah, they don't get BuzzFeed articles like Wilma Whiteboard. Miss, I'm going to wear, I don't know, syringe bottle earrings. She's no more for her stunts than her legislating. She's no more for her antics with her colleagues. So I would like y'all to stop propping up Whiteboard Wilma Katie Porter, please. But for every one of her, we have legislators who want to do the job, like Lauren Underwood. And if we got more Lauren Underwoods into our House, into our Senate, we could get stuff done, and we need it on the state level. These attacks, and why I brought up the Cabo Crew first, feels insidious because the midterms are coming up. And like I said in that surprise Bonnet Chronicles, it feels targeted. When I see a pattern, I'm going to pull it out. I'm going to point to it. I'm going to say, look at this pattern. They've been attacking the midterms since last year. I was seeing think pieces and people on social media speculating about how the Dems are going to take a hit since last year. They are predicting losses because they want you to have an excuse to stay home, and your apathy will harm us. The reason why the GOP thinks they can just do whatever they want, they can obstruct. They don't have to vote on things like the Build Back Better plan. They don't have to vote to pass the John Lewis voting rights bill. And they won't even look at the George Floyd Act. They don't care because they don't have to care. They know their constituents will do as they say. They know their constituents won't keep themselves safe. They know their constituents will storm a Capitol on the lie that the election was stolen. They have perfect foot soldiers for fuckery. So if you're trying and failing to get the Dems to act like that, because you are going to fail. Because unlike the GOP, our party is definitely more diverse. Our party cannot center one group over the other. Our party is full of pragmatists who understands that we're not always going to get the things we want. But if we can negotiate and make things better for everybody, eventually we can work towards lasting progress that helps us all. Progress comes in incremental steps. And these Cabo Crew types, these Angela Rye types, are spreading the message that it's not fast enough. It's not being loud enough. One of the things that pissed me off these last few weeks was the Where's Merrick Garland. You notice that a lot of the Do Something Twitter had crickets for that, as the DOJ arrested yet another insurrectionist leader. One of the Proud Boys leaders at that. But crickets. I thought Merrick wasn't doing his job. It is tiring to hear people who should know better go do something because they want a show. And it's troubling at this point because way too many people want a Law and Order episode instead of competent, calm work being done. And these young women and these brothers with a platform, because don't think I don't know how the Breakfast Crew was dissing our current administration. Don't think I missed out on that Craig Melvin bullshit where people are trying to push Kamala Harris to the side for fucking Cheney. Liz Cheney is a Republican. Liz Cheney is not a Dem hero. Stop trying to make her fetch. Her husband shot somebody in the face. I'm shocked these people. They should be in jail. Stop it. The fact is, there's been a coordinated attack on this administration from the get because for some reason, people feel either chaos is lucrative, they're salty about access they thought they would have had with Mima, who is a main connector for a lot of these women, these Lori Max and these Angela Rye and this Latasha Brown person. All of them were propping up Elizabeth Warren as their pick. As if Elizabeth Warren had won, we wouldn't be in this mess. And Warren of herself tweeting about student loan debt. You literally watched your colleague cry and then pass on the John Lewis voter right bill. Voting rights should be the most important thing from any senator who claims to be a Democrat slips. And oh no, not Liz. She's too busy still stoking the fires of the Bernie brats. And it's because there's a disconnect. And this is going to tie into the story that I'm about to bring up. I know people have been waiting for me to weigh in on this since my earlier little Bonnet short on Twitter. There are a lot of people doing things to make a name for themselves, doing things to reach to the youth because it's important. I know to an old brain like me, people who are young just aren't, I don't normally waste my time. My son is about the limit to my patience with most youth. So I get not understanding the way they think and not feeling that they care about politics. But I also see the point being made that if a child, especially, has an interest in the government and politics, it's good to get it stoked early. My son has been by my side at a voting booth since he was in a carrier. He watches me fill out my absentee ballots now because he's seen we've gone from going to the polling place to actually filling it out at home. I explain the process to him. I want him politically involved, even if it's bare minimum casting his ballot. I want him to understand why it's important, just like it was explained to me. But there are some teenagers, sadly, and I don't mean sadly, there are just some teenagers that are more invested in it than not. And currently, there is somebody that I happen to respect, that I follow on Twitter, from my hometown in New York, who's running for a congressional seat, who made a very controversial decision. And it's a hot button one, y'all. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. On the front level, it looks fucking dumb. No way to get around that. It looks fucking dumb. But on so many other levels, when you really sit and unpack it, when you realize, especially after the last 4 years, we really need more young people to get more engaged in politics, more, involved, because no matter what we think, our decisions affect them too. There's a reason why I could write about gun control and have the GOP representative write me back that he disagrees with me, even after a school shooting that just happened here. There's a reason why these idiots think nothing matters as long as they have their guns and freedom. And if we keep discouraging the youth because they're too young to understand politics from having a role in the political process, you can't get mad when they're like, oh, my vote don't matter anyway. They don't want to hear what I have to say. But that being said, I'm going to record skip on the fact that you shouldn't have a fucking 14-year-old as your campaign manager. And I don't care if this makes you upset if you actually watch this. I think the problem comes from the fact that as somebody who worked on a campaign, and I was just a speechwriter, and it was just a grassroots for a friend of mine who ran in Colorado. He placed 5th. So I think he did pretty well for a no-name just starting out. But it was a tough campaign. There was a lot of work to be done, and I just wrote fancy things for him to say. A campaign manager has to book things, has to be able to give interviews if they're good at it, wade social media, be able to defend themselves. I wanted to give this young man and this choice the benefit of the doubt, and then I read that Medium article, which once again, Senator Warren's name comes up again because she really, her front confused and drew in so many people. I honestly, as a sociopath, tipped my hat to her because she had really convinced everybody that she is the one. She wasn't the one. But the Medium article was like a sledgehammer to my reasoning that this is still a child. And honestly, youth outreach would have made sense. Social media coordinator would have made sense. You came out the firing block saying that this child is going to be your campaign manager, and my brain goes, why? Because it gets people talking? Because the news might pick up on this? Because people are definitely going back and forth? And I'm asking you, if you watch this, please don't dogpile. I am so tired of people fighting on Twitter. I'm so tired of mutuals fighting each other. Can't we just express our opinion on something without it divulging into a block fest? It's getting tiring to navigate. And I am not going to unfollow Maya. I'm not going to block Maya. If y'all want to go back and forth with that, I know she's been doing that. She's in a tense situation right now. I don't know if you understand this, and a lot of you asked me to run for something. But as somebody who's literally worked on a campaign, it is a stressful situation. And politicians are still human. Politicians still have feelings. Even wannabe politicians still have feelings. That's why instead of going on the Yang or Warren or even Bernie's Twitter all the time and telling them that they're foolish, I just kept my distance and worked to elect competent people. And I don't want you passing up on the opportunity for somebody who might be better than Maloney because of this campaign manager choice. Because like I said, right out the bat, she's already got us talking. But I can see why getting young people more politically aware and active early, even, and I know that, G. Feldman. I know he can't vote yet. And like I said, every single talking point people had, why this doesn't make sense, ran through my head, including what the heck is this stunt? But it works. We, whether we want to accept it or not, are in the age of viral. We are in the age of people who need to do whatever they can to get their face out there, to get clicks and views. I'm not saying that's Maya's goal. I am not saying that is why she did it. But I am saying that is the times we're in, where you have people like AOC who go to a Met Gala, $35,000 ticket event with an Eat More Chicken bag like dress that says tax the rich. Because she thinks that stunt is more important than drafting legislation to help student loans. It's real funny how many people stunt these people who do these antics for power, who say that they're activists. But when you follow the paper trail of their activism, if you're lucky, you'll find bare minimum, but all you see is protest. I said it in that thread and I mean it. I cannot trust anybody who is constantly streaming negativity on us, but not offering action and solution. Who, when they're invited to sit at the table and work with the people in charge, they decide to protest on the steps instead. Because they know a news camera will come up and film them. And then the GOP will use that in their talking points and campaigns against us. I said it last year. One of the things during the Michigan races, I think Gary Peters was one of the senators running, and he won his seat again. But the GOPer that was running against him decided to use AOC as an attacking point. And it was like, AOC is not even from Michigan. Why is she being brought up in an attack ad against this senator here? But the squad gives the GOP the boogeyman. The squad literally gives the GOP talking points to use against active Dems. And we cannot afford slimmer margins, because between stoking their base with the color boogeyman's going to get you, they're going to take your jobs and your guns, and they're going to get free money on your back. That's the Fox News right-wing shit that they get spoon-fed every night, cobbled with our squad. And I say ours loosely because I don't claim none of them young ladies. Giving them talking points that they can hammer home against Democrats who just want to get the job done. Peter's record, while it ain't the greatest for me, he shows up. He talks to his constituents. He does his job. He might not want to rock the boat. He's the typical milquetoast white guy Democrat. But he does his job. And it wasn't fair for him to be cudgeled by AOC's talking points when he's never had those. But that is what we're up against. And in the age of digital, where narratives can be crafted, those of us who are sandwiched in the middle of the far left types and the freaking right, we have to be mindful. I know it's tiring. I know our nerves are frayed. I know it can be very exhausting right now. Not knowing what's true. Feeling like things are in disarray. Feeling like, nothing's going to matter, but it does. We see the states that are in the GOP's hands, what they're going through right now. Not only with COVID, DeSantis, Matt Gaetz, the freaking child trafficker, has turned Florida into even worse of a wild, wild west. And now, since Kellyanne Conway seems to be weirdly throwing her hat behind him and defending him against Trump, of all people, I'm starting to believe the rumors that I've been fishing through about how they are trying to prompt DeSantis up as their next GOP homeboy. Because all McConnell and them need is a willing puppet. He doesn't have to be smart. Trump prove that. He doesn't even have to be savvy. He just has to have enough name recognition for them people to go, yeah, we could back that. Florida is a mess, Respect. Welcome to the chat, dear. And so is Texas. Abbott is a freaking mess. Cruz is a freaking mess. I will never stop harping on those two. One wants to take away body autonomy for women with his freaking heartbeat bills. And Cruz is just a punk ass who bailed on his constituents when there was a winter storm that Texas should not have suffered from. But climate issues are a thing. And I would love to have legislators who actually believe in science so that we can work on healing things so that the earth doesn't freaking storm in places that normally don't get that much snow. But we can't get there because we have dummies, 50 dummies in our Senate, 200 dummies in our House that people just let do whatever because, oh, it's just the right. They're never going to change. What can we do about it? You can vote them out. And the whole idea that they can't be organized around. The whole idea that red states, too much voter suppression. The people who are targeted by voter suppression have every right to say that. What's the rest of y'all's excuse? I don't want to hear it. There's only one major group that feels the direct brunt of this in a lot of southern states. In rural states, the other group that feels it is our indigenous group, which nobody wants to talk about. Nobody wants to talk about the natives having P.O. boxes shifted, having ballot centers just closed down and not telling anybody until they get out there. The people of color who are attacked by voter suppression laws still do their damnedest to get their vote out. So those of you in the demographic that is hardly ever, if ever, attacked by voter suppression laws, what's your excuse? Exactly, Respect. Kemp is a son of a bitch. The fact that he was Secretary of State and ran for governor was already a conflict of interest that boggles my mind that he was not forced to recuse or resign from that position before he stepped into the other. But the level of corruption in GA politics is just baffling to me. We got lucky that black voters said, nah, we are tired of McConnell having the Senate majority. We're going to stand up and come out for Warnoff and Ossoff. But all this done is have Kemp create more rules to make voting hard. This is why it makes me upset that the so-called Dems, who don't look like me, who normally aren't the target of these, who could turn out, who seem to want to organize marches and women's pride parades and all that other stuff, can't get it together to organize ballot turnout, to make sure that people get rides to the polls, to make sure that early voting is touted to people, to help people who get absentee ballots, to make sure that there are measures for those of us who are disabled to get absentee ballots put in, to make ease of access voting the number one main focus, because once we have effective legislators, we can get effective legislation that stops all of this nonsense in its tracks. It's tiring, y'all, seeing the patterns, speaking on it, having people go, oh yeah, girl, we believe you, girl, high five, and then the midterms come and you don't turn out. And you don't turn out because, oh, the Dems ain't fighting hard enough for me. Why do you just want a fighter? I've never understood that rhetoric in politics at all. I would love for somebody to explain to me, and welcome to the chat, Terry Antico. I would love for somebody to explain to me where it started with that fighter nonsense, because it needs to stop. I want competent legislators. I don't want to know what they're doing on a daily basis. I want to see the results of their legislative work. I want to see families not struggling so hard, or if at all. I want to see better education. I want to see people who actually work towards better for our environment and just issues that you feel might not affect you directly. But when we're all in a better place, it helps us all directly. I want to feel more hope than I have been feeling. I'm going to be 100% honest with you. Since January 21st, 2021, I have felt more hopeful, despite the doom and gloom sayers, despite the sky is falling and things aren't fast enough. They've been saying things aren't fast enough 6 months in to this administration. It has only been a year. And like I said, they inherited 4 years of fuckery. A completely destabilized cabinet system, a justice system which we have seen McConnell's master plan for the Supreme Court bite us in the ass. Some of you in 2016 told us we were hyperbolic. You're not going to threaten us with the SCOTUS. Going back to the whole campaign manager thing, because I wanted to make this point about Mayan, and I'm gonna. It's not that I'm dinging you, hun. But there's a reason why campaign managers are so important. Because Bernie had a campaign manager, a little cheese as I like to call her, that stepped in it. She is a prime example of what not to do as a campaign manager. And she's still being a Twitter troll because that's all she has left. Being salty and being bitter. On the opposite, you have Simone. She jumped from the Bernie campaign, helped launch a very successful Biden-Harris campaign, worked in the White House, and now is an MSNBC consultant. Matter of fact, I think she might even be on the show now. And her career keeps going up. It is two campaign managers' paths that vastly different based on attitude, based on arrogance. While Cheese sits at home doing her podcast, which is not a knock because that's what I'm doing now, Simone has continued to go on to do good things and will because she's in it for the right reasons. I can't talk to Bree's intentions. I think like a lot of black children that have a little bit more privilege, that come from middle or upper middle class homes, she don't know no better. Honestly speaking, I could have ended up like her if my mom had not decided to move us away from a more secure upbringing for whatever reason my mom had. But I understand Bree's mentality because when you go to a school where you're probably the darkest face sometimes, where all your friends are almost all white, where you're taught even from your family that proximity to whiteness will get you respectability, keeping your grades up, putting on that mask and that face. I understand how girls like Bree and some of those girls from the Cabo Crew can carry themselves. The code switching, the acting like a sister girl in one face but looking down on your people in another. I get it. It's lucrative for some of y'all. It's not for me. I think the one positive I could take from my mom dragging us away and showing us the life of poverty and me living a pretty moderate life where I'm not completely poor, but I'm not freaking ecking out money, y'all. I understand the struggle. And I understand better than most that there are people out there that just don't care. It's all about their ends. They feel if they have enough of an economic cushion, who cares if the world burns? They'll watch it from the yacht in Cabo. We can't afford this. And then the connection I made with Warren is the fact that I feel like Warren promised a lot of people access to her administration. I feel like Warren, once again, talked a good game. She's been lying for over 50 years. She lied about her ethnicity. She lies about her policy wrong thing. She takes credit for things. I'm not saying she hasn't done legislative things before people try to ding me on that. But when you really unpack Elizabeth Warren, you see a lot of fake ass fuckery that I know I'm not crazy when I see it. She literally took credit for something that Letitia James, the AG of New York, did. And it's like, why are you even talking? You are so concerned about student credit and student loans. You're wonk. Wonk your ass to the halls and draft some legislation. Get your ass off Twitter. I am getting really annoyed with politicians that spend more time on Twitter than in their Senate halls drafting legislation or in their own offices drafting legislation. And Liz has been given the crumbs of her personality for a while now. But that primary, yo, like I said, I just don't understand how she fooled so many people. But I feel the connection was access. She promised these young ladies access, whether maybe it was cabinet position, maybe it was journalistic access. There's got to be a reason why these women went so hard for her, and it can't be monetary because Leslie Mack was going hard for her. Homegirl was supposedly working with her, and they had to have a GoFundMe to pay her cable bill. I know the campaign work is not lucrative work. Trust me, again, saying from experience as a speechwriter, I ain't make hardly anything doing that shit. All I got to do was brag that I worked on somebody's campaign, which, who cares? But when you work for somebody who's literally a millionaire, because Liz is a millionaire, FYI, and the people who support and work on your campaign have to set up a GoFundMe to pay utility bills, why are you still standing there? Why am I even seeing people with blood and teeth emojis at this point still? Why are people even trying to say things would have been better under Warren? The fuck it would have. You're telling me that Liz inheriting the Afghan pullout, Liz inheriting the insurrection, Liz inheriting all the destabilization, the corrupt PPE loan money mismanagement under Mnuchin, and all the stuff that Trump did for the last 4 years would have been better than Joe Biden, who has been vice president, who has been a senator, and Kamala Harris, who has been a senator, who has an economic background. You gotta be freaking kidding me. Liz Warren didn't even want Trump to be kicked off of Twitter. This was a man who lobbed racial slurs at her, falsely so, because we found out she wasn't even native. But she wouldn't. She's the typical white Democrat, and I'm sorry if I hurt feelings on this, who talk a good game, but when push comes to shove, we can't rely on them. She's the kind of person who can go to a barbershop because she's seen Senator Harris, now VP Harris, go to a barbershop because then Senator Harris, now VP Harris, wanted to talk to black business owners, wanted to get their input on what they could do to make it better for them. Liz went to the black barbershop and said, "Oh, gee, golly, what do you do here? What's this gathering about?" Getting their hair cut. And yes, sometimes they talk issues and stuff because that's what we do when we congregate, but this was not a space for you. And I made people laugh, and I was upset at the time when I tweeted this out, but it felt like she was like Richard Attenborough. And she literally Attenborough black people's lives. Oh, look at the Negro in their natural habitat, getting their hair cut, shooting the breeze. Who brings camera crews to ask black people who are getting their hair cut what they're doing? Add to the little the all the children's songs that she did at that town hall, and it's like, why are these people going so hard for me, Ma? And I'm sorry, the analytical brain is saying she promised these people access that she knew she wasn't going to give them because Liz is a liar. And you can get upset with me, but she lied about her ethnicity. She lied about being poor. She lies constantly. I don't want somebody like her to represent me. She is not on Hillary Clinton's level, and some of you were trying to push her as either next or better than. And y'all need to, don't ever say that to me in person. Some of you accuse actually genuinely competent politicians to be a fake because you don't like the way they are. You're doing that to MVP Harris right now. Everything she does, oh, she's a fraud, she's a phony, when she has the record to stand on. But Liz can say, "Oh, golly gee me, I was a poor lady. I lived in the Dust Bowl," and you just believe it. Her own family was like, "Liz, it really wasn't that bad. I don't know where you're coming from with this." No, really. I lived in a little house on the prairie. So I'm very wary of anybody, especially now, still standing Elizabeth Warren. I don't get the mystique of her at all. I don't like frauds. And some of you are really still standing a fraud. I shouldn't even be bringing her name up anymore. She lost the primary. She is a senator in Massachusetts. And if she wants to keep that Senate seat, I would suggest instead of tweeting about student debt, since she seems to want to stoke the youthful base that she cares about that, instead of trying to plot for 2024, Liz, you should be drafting legislation to help the causes that you claim to be about, instead of waiting for another senator to do it and taking credit for it. Yeah, I'm shots fired, y'all, because I see what I see. And the patterns of the people who have ties to Liz, who are coming out their faces with the messaging that Joe Biden isn't doing things fast enough. The fact that they could come up and talk about Jason Johnson, y'all. You know I don't really have much love lost for him. Unlike other people who he's blocked, and I'm sure if he gets wind of this, I'll be blocked after this. I blocked him last year during the primaries because I felt he was very misogynistic, and I ain't got time for his level of negativity. But his whole thing is, we said, don't come at us with just negativity without ideas. And it's going to feel like I'm moving the goalposts like a lot of people do. But his idea was Biden not only to ram an executive order, which we just seen the Supreme Court can block, but to penalize states that don't fall in line. Liz had the same ideals. Well, what can we do about mother mortality and black mother infant mortality? We'll just penalize the hospitals that are racist financially. And it's like, okay, so you're going to tell people who are already prejudiced against black people, especially black mothers, that we'll take money from you if we catch you being racist, and think that's going to have anything but a negative impact. You think taking money for infrastructure away from battleground states or even red states and making people suffer, who's that helping? Sanctions should be the last resort. And it should, honestly, political chess speaking, be used against people that are ineffective anyway, but just to show a point. It's why we keep sanctions on North Korea. North Korea, I read an article earlier, is testing missiles again based on something they didn't like about Biden. They're always threatening to test missiles. Kim Jong, whatever, I think Un is the one in charge right now, is constantly threatened. And nobody but Trump took his dumb ass seriously. We pressed sanctions because we know that even if we sent items to that country, the people aren't getting it. But it is different here in the United States. You sanction one state, it could be detrimental to innocent people who are just trying to survive. So stop with the penalization. I don't trust anybody whose idea to get stuff passed that's supposed to benefit all of us is to hurt people. It makes me sick to my stomach that people and pundits with a platform, that's your answer to this. I might not like that people who literally think that Trump is their messiah might benefit from something good for all of us, but that's the reality of pragmatism, y'all. It's the reality of living in a better country, that everybody gets to feel the good. And if your idea is, no, I don't want that. I want them to punish, suffer, and pay. Everybody suffers when you have that attitude. You have to move away from that messaging because it has seeped into so many people's pores. It is why people are so depressed right now, when we should be feeling hope. It is why people ignore the year of progress despite a mountain of bullshit to climb over. And it's tiring to constantly combat this negative messaging, but I fortunately have the ability to speak on it. I'm not going to act like everything's happy-go-lucky, rainbow, unicorn, sunshine, and bunnies. But the way people are acting like the sky is falling and that negotiations, which have been going on in our Senate and House since its incursion years ago, is the end of the world for you? This is real politics. Real politics is negotiation. Real politics, sadly, is stalling. Real politics is pushing bills through and watching them languish sometimes. And if you want these bills to pass, instead of dinging the Democrats on what they're not doing, instead of constantly crying about Party City Wig Cinema or Mansion, that fucking MacGuffin, work with us to elect effective local legislators, because this is a state level issue. I know some pundits don't want us to see that, because honestly speaking, I feel like the patterns point to it being more lucrative for them to have chaos. Who will buy their books if things aren't chaotic? Who will believe their soothsaying the doom if we dare get out and elect officials that want to make things better for us? It'll be a too many slow news day if we actually get gun control. It's sad the way our current society functions. But I do have more hope than I did before, because I reminded myself, as somebody who loves history, one day in the future, there will be somebody digitally pulling up this era, looking at the COVIDiots, looking at the storming of our Capitol and going, thank God we're not like that anymore. And I say that as a historian because I've looked at pictures of my people being lynched, of my people being threatened because they wanted to be free, of their rights to vote being challenged with poll taxes and literal KKK burning stuff on their lawn. And I realize that some people think we're not far away from that, but we are. My grandparents literally had hoses and dogs turned on them for daring to march and say we are somebody and we want our civil rights. Some of you act so far removed from that, but I can't be. I talk about my grandparents all the time because literally went overseas to fight Nazis, to have people just last year wearing pro-Holocaust shirts. I don't understand why we're at this level of stupid, but I'm going to do my damnedest to combat it because it doesn't make sense. And you can't make this make sense. We are in the digital age. We see the stupidity, yet so many of you parrot the same anti-logical talking points. And then you act like the depressed turnout is just, it is what it is. Why should we be motivated in midterms? Oh, you mean state legislation affects national level stuff? You mean we got to remember that we're 50 separate states all needing to negotiate stuff so that collectively we can have better? Some of yous really need Schoolhouse Rock because basic civics is not your forte. And it's horrible. It really is, G. Feldman. It is disgusting. And exactly respect. They would have nothing to write books about, sadly. And you know what? They actually would if they were smart. They could make a bank off talking about the past. Talking about where we've come from. Actually teaching about the past. But oh no, we can't have that. We are literally electing dummies on the school board in places like Virginia who are, we can't have CRT. Critical race theory. That'll make our kids feel bad. That narrative has been running around for a bit because it's the new right-wing boogeyman. They are so afraid of being woke that they are literally teaching their kids that anything black is CRT. You got a black teacher? CRT. You seen a black cat? Oh no, that's CRT. It is the new right-wing boogeyman. Just like feminism was their boogeyman. Just like anything pro-LGBT is their boogeyman. It's why North Carolina, which lost money, and this is where you hit these motherfuckers, in the resource belt. They made that HB 12 when I first moved to North Carolina, and we had to fight, and it's still, I don't know if Cooper completely got rid of it. That trans bathroom ban, which didn't even make sense. McCrory could not fully explain his thought process. It was just bigotry. We already know the GOP is the party of bigotry. So if you claim not to be about that, whether your favorite wins or not, because like I said, part of the 94%, we're in it, win, lose, or draw, because we understand what's on the line. But I see the patterns. They've been trying to destabilize our voting bloc for a while. And they're hitting us in the youth, especially. The youth who watch things like The Breakfast Club with Charlamagne the God, who's disrespected. You got some of the old brains who are watching Craig Melvin, who literally sat across from the vice president and asked her, well, what do you think about the rumors that people are talking about Liz Cheney being with Joe Biden in 2024? And I'm going to put a knife into the heart of anybody thinking that. If you think anybody would turn out for Cheney anything at this point, especially after her ass showed her true colors over and over and over again, you're delusional. You let some Friedman guy, I don't even know who the fuck he is, write a New York Times article about his wet dream about this weird bipartisan chimera that will give them the conservative lean that they want as the real? Come on now. I told y'all, the best thing you can do for this is block out the noise. Stop engaging them. They are purposely trying to rile us up and exhaust us. And what's worse is I feel like there's a coordinated effort from within. Black people tend to elevate our celebrities. We tend to root for our celebrities and support our celebrities because we came from a place where we didn't have that position. Some people are really humbled by our coming together. And they work with us and they use their voice, like Beyonce and Jay-Z, which some people want to ding. But they're out there coming out of pocket. LeBron James, another one. LeBron setting up schools for his community. They're not the Negroes you want to talk about, though. But Jason Johnson and his crew of grievancers, y'all are all in their mouth. Charlamagne the God, who I will give y'all $20 each if you can show me his political history and tell me that he is really politically invested. Come on now. But these kids and these old brains listen to this bullshit and they're like, it's going to matter either. As Angela Rye said, you can't pee on me and tell me it's rain. It is ridiculous, the messaging. But it's on point to target the most solid, most reliable voting bloc. And we're not even at 100%. If you look at black male versus black female voter turnout, brother man, y'all need to do better. I don't care if you like what I got to say. Your demographic needs to bump it up a few more points because you're barely clearing 70 to 80% sometimes in key elections. And way too many of y'all push for conservatism, which you can't make that make sense. The only thing I can think of, and this has been shown as a pattern too, many people in multi-ethnic relationships tend to lean conservative for some reason. It's not like that all the time. Like a lot of women in these relationships, like myself, are hardcore liberal. We do not want to go to the other side. We've seen the dark side. They don't have cookies. But for a lot of black men, in these types of relationships, there seems to be a comfort or respectability in the conservative party that I just don't get. They don't care about you. If anything, you'll be a lucrative prop for as long as they can, but your life doesn't matter to them. And it's very clear. They are the people whose ancestors threw shit at Ruby Ridge, who now they don't want their kids learning about. They are the ones who went to picnics while our people were being lynched. These are not the people that will protect you. And then the argument is, what about the Democrats? What about their history? History nerd. I know the Southern strategy. I know that the former Democrats around Lyndon B. Johnson's time were not the people that I would have been hardcore for, but they weren't liberal then either. But some of yous bank on us not being history nerds. And a lot of yous aren't. So yous fall for stuff like, Hillary Clinton worked with Robert Byrd. Ignore the fact that Robert Byrd denounced every horrible thing he did. He knew he couldn't undo the damage of his racism and racist thoughts. He just had to be better, whether people believed it or not. And those are the people I trust over the people who loudly tell me that they've changed with no action. And there are a lot of those out there. There are a lot of those who stunt and tell me, I'm your ally, 10. How dare you talk about white people, 10? I'm your ally. How can you say that? Wasn't talking about them directly. Was showing a direct example of the racism, but they had to come and not all white people me and give me a long ass resume of their voting history and all the good things they did for us people. And it's like, who summoned you? I didn't put out a white people signal. I don't need you coming in there to defend yourself. It's guilt. And I know you don't like me saying that, but what else could it be? I do not stick up for all black people. I'm going to make it clear. We might try to come together and uplift those who are successful, but once they show they ain't shit, I don't even do that for family. So I'm sure not going to do that for no celebrity. And there are a lot of black celebrities that ain't shit. Looking at you, Kanye. Pretty soon going to be convict, yay. I seen that arrest charge that he just came up with for, I think, assault it is. Talking about, I need to reach out to Putin. That he needs mental help. Kanye is far gone. I don't know. I know it was before the Kardashian clan, but I don't think that family did any favors to his mental health. He needs help. He has been on the path of self-destruction. But for real, I feel like there's a certain attitude that people have when it comes to voting, when it comes to election, that these character actors exploit. They exploit the fact that you think Dems should be fighters instead of practical legislators, quiet pencil pushers that get the job done. It's why they push the narrative that stuff ain't getting done fast enough. Stuff isn't being allowed enough. Where's Merrick? Why isn't he giving speeches? Why should the head of the DOJ be constantly giving you speeches? How many of you gave a fuck about the DOJ before Trump? Don't fake a funk. I get armchair politics. That's basically what this show is most time. But don't act like you care about something when you did not. Telling me, oh, I read books on this. I'm an expert. You mean more of an expert than the people who actually work this? Who are saying, yes, we are getting convictions. Yes, we are getting the job done. No, we don't have time for Twitter. I think some of you have gotten so used to the carnival barkers of Trump, and you don't want to admit that you kind of liked that sideshow. You don't want him back, but you like the chaos of it. You like grouping together and talking about what that motherfucker do now. I don't want that. I want to be able to get back to geeky things. Yeah, honestly speaking, when Twitter first came about, I didn't want no parts of it. I know my Twitter account is 10 years old. I was forced to get to Twitter for work, honestly. This is a funny story, but it's the truth. 10 years ago, I was doing gaming journalism. I don't call myself a journalist anymore because technically what I did was just gaming reviews and giving interviews to idiotic indie gamers who their games kind of sucked. Honestly speaking, I was just a glorified interviewer. But my boss, my then editor, said, you have to have a social media presence. This is our job. The way to sell our magazine is to have a digital presence. That's why I picked Kalari Gamer Chick as my handle. And I fought tooth and nail. I had to make a Reddit one too, and I still don't even remember my login most days for that. I had to have a social media presence for my job. I hated Twitter. The only thing in my early tweets was putting out gaming stuff, putting out charity events for gaming stuff, bare minimum tweeting. And then politics started to get dicey. And it was towards President Obama's last few years that I was like, I need to pay attention. I felt like our country was collectively getting stupider. And then when Trump announced his candidacy, I was fearful. So I stopped talking about geeky and gamer things, and I started talking about politics and social issues because it was really bad. And I know some people forget about those times, but I didn't, because we were losing kids like Trayvon. We were losing kids like Mike Brown. We were losing kids to legalized lynching, kids to vigilantes. We were having school shootings. Our country was being destabilized by McConnell, who are holding up Supreme Court appointments. And midterm elections that were abysmal. So I started talking. And my little following that used to just come to me for gaming news, which was mostly friends, kept growing. I'm thankful to all of you who follow my crazy ass now. I don't understand it. There are times where I get tired of Twitter and I just take days away. But the main reason why I continue to grow this platform, the main reason why I didn't shut Twitter down last year when it almost became too much, was because I understand that words carry. I don't always understand why people are so swayed. I don't understand why people can't verify and vet and understand for themselves. But I do understand that as long as people want to hear what I got to say, I need to be mindful, I need to be factual, and I need to understand that I don't want to dismiss your feelings on stuff. I don't want to dismiss your pain. A lot of us have lost over the last few years. Some of us have been losing for a while now, though. And I need you to understand the reality of that. And if we continue to have 50 GOP senators obstructing, 200 GOP representatives in the House obstructing things that would be better for us, we are not going to get away from this. And I said it before. The goal of the GOP now seems to be a theocracy. They want to make us this Bible-thumping Christian nation, ignoring that not all of us are Christians, ignoring that not every American even worships in that way or at all. But they have stoked their base to believe that anything else is less than. They don't care that it would cause rampant poverty. They don't care who will be targeted for their civil rights. They don't care who gets to exist in their theocracy unless they're straight Christian and white. And we cannot. There's no Democratic current platform that I've seen, even the worst Democratic, even the most far left leaning Democratic platform that says you can't be a Christian. We're not trying to exit them out, but if you listen to Fox News, that's the narrative. They can't stand all-encompassing diversity because they realize that up against people who, despite all the hurdles, despite all the roadblocks to our education, to our health concerns, to just society in general, we still rise. They would look even more mediocre. So they wholeheartedly, fingernails in, dig into the whole ideal that they're somehow better, that their faith is somehow better, that their lack of melanin is somehow better. They've been proven time and time again, especially in these COVID times, that that's not the case. They are definitely not smarter. They are definitely not better. They are just humans like the rest of us. And once more of them accept that and realize that we could be in a better place, our technology is continually advancing, yet our species is getting dumber. There is so much structurally wrong with our current education system that I could spend a whole Bonnet Chronicles ripping that apart. Why do we still, in this day and age, pit kids against each other in grades? Why are we still doing a one-size-fits-all? The thing that bothers me the most about education is the percentile stuff. I get that we have statisticians that sit there and go, well, if 20 kids at this age group read at this range, it means all of these kids should do it. That's not how education should work. It really is trash. Education should be engaging. There's a reason why so many kids are drained from school systems. And it's not just active shooter drills, but the system itself is stacked against anybody who doesn't learn fast enough, who doesn't find interest in the way some of their teachers present things. And kids are being penalized for not knowing, which, last I checked, students aren't supposed to. And why, as a collective society, are we against people continuing to learn? And why does it cost so much to learn? These are the things we should be able to tackle, but there is one side that would love to keep us dumb, love to keep us fighting, and love to make people believe that if you look and pray a certain way, you're above everybody else. And as long as those people believe that, and as long as those adjacent to them continue to somehow benefit lucratively from that, we are going to be in times of a fight. Sadly speaking, I want those people to benefit too, even if they complain about it, even if they harken back to the 50s, which was supposedly their heyday. I want everybody to benefit because we all deserve a lift up, even the people I can't personally stand. And if you're not saying that, I'm wary of you at this point because I'm tired of the divide and conquer. It has kept us dumb. It has kept us destructive. It has kept us from getting actual progress. And I don't trust any progressive that is like, well, I want progress for me and mine. I don't care what happens to you. Oh, you're complaining about your lives mattering? That's identity politics. Everybody's life is identity politics. Some of you have been voting identity politics your whole life or deciding to hold your vote based on that identity politics your whole life. And you're dinging me because I know my vote equals a possible chance of survival, equals having legislators who will get the police if they shoot an unarmed black child in the back versus what we currently have. Come on now, y'all. I see the messaging. I see the games some of you play on social media to make a name for yourself. You ding somebody who's talking social issues, and then you go, the K-Hive's attacking me. K-Hive don't know you. We'll forget about you because you're just like every other bot and troll that jump into our mentions to try to start shit. I'm telling y'all, don't even engage them. It might seem fun every once in a while to tell Junior he's stupid, but they know. And that's even if they really are the so-called Bitcoin pushing socialist guy. Half the time, these are Russian bot farms. Seriously. Y'all are literally arguing with a bot that just wants to rile you up. Because they could take that information, that analytics back and say, see, yeah, that's VP Harris's base. This is the stuff you can say to get them swarming you. And then they take it to the trust fund journalist or these sister girls who they've been running with the narrative of being attacked all week. Because according to them, us saying that it seems kind of fishy that yous all went to Cabo to kiki it up and then yous all came back with the same negative narrative. And for me, I just want them to understand the impact. Because if we don't turn out during the midterm elections, if we continue to let the GOP have power, there's a reason why Model McConnell is acting like he's on easy street. He really feels like this country is dumb enough to hand him the majority back. Or hand one of his proteges the majority. He really thinks he is still the puppet master. And it feels like he has operatives in our media helping steer that. So I am side-eyeing and worrying those of you who are messaging in a way that could affect that and help McConnell. Because that's the patterns I see. And I know some of you will be like, no, I would never do that to our people. Prove it. For all the negative, it is very rare that I see people sharing clips anymore of them talking about all the infrastructure things, all the global things we've done in the last year. The fact that we still have so much work to do isn't hampered by the fact that Jews are acting like nothing got done at all. We know there's a lot of work to do. We were there for the 4 years of fuckery that was Trump. There are still human rights violations to address. I didn't forget about those. I don't forget about the migrants. I know some of you might have been numb to it, but I didn't. I called those shits concentration camps from the beginning. And I got dinged by not only right-wingers, but Bernie brats. Them babies were laying on the floor under 4 blankets. Exactly, Beans. Women had unethical medical procedures put on them. And families were separated for almost a year, if not more, under that administration. I don't forget about the Muslim ban. If you are a practicing Muslim, you couldn't even travel in and out of your own country because of that bigoted Trump. The transgender military nonsense that he tried to pass. And while he convinced some conservative Jews that he was pro-Israel, he screwed up the two-state plan that they were working on over there. Trump was a nightmare. He brought death that we are still feeling the effects of as we hit over 800,000 deaths to COVID, which he downplayed. He destabilized places like Yemen, caused death and destruction there. He turned a blind eye to what was going on in Syria until he couldn't. 4 American soldiers died in Africa, and we still don't even know what the fuck that was about. Some of you need reminders of our current history because you act far removed from it. And why I'm so passionate about the midterms, why I'm so passionate why we can't be apathetic to local elections anymore, is because 50 sitting senators and 200 sitting Republican Congress people in our House would rather us go back to that, if not worse. And I'm tired of the messaging being about what Dems are doing, because we have seen what the conservatives will do, what they have done. It is not distant history, y'all. And I know 4 years of it can give shell shock, and I don't blame anybody for any PTSD that might have come from it, but you need to shake it off. Talk it out with a therapist, work it out, and get your asses to the polls. We need all hands on deck. Everybody who jumps in my mentions, and not all white people, every Karen that wants to tell me that they've been a Dem since the 1960s and they always vote blue no matter who, prove it. And bring your friends and bring their friends and get people to the polls. Stop giving the youth an out. Why should anybody 18 to 30 not take this seriously when they are directly impacted by this? Yet their poll numbers are still abysmal. They have brought it up in the national, but they're still not turning out in their state and local where they need to be. Even my generation needs to do better. And I get it, Gen X, we're tired. Many of us have children and parents that we have to take care of. That was my reality up till 2 years ago. I was caretaking a very toxic mom and my son and doing it all on my own. I get it, Gen X, we're tired, but we can bring up our numbers too. I was not impressed by our turnout. We need to do better. We claim to be the ones that were raised on Schoolhouse Rock. We claim to be the ones that did the rock the vote. We need to do better, Gen Xers. No joke. We're old enough to know better, and we're young enough to be tech savvy. There's no excuse for our generation. You can say, okay, boomer, to the boomers who sometimes just want to yell at the sky and blame everybody for everything and not take responsibility. Not all of y'all, before y'all ding me. I love the boomers. You've been through some shit. I do not disrespect my elders on that. They're the reason why we have marriage equality. They're the reason why we have a lot of the civil rights and women's rights things. So y'all need to respect your elders. I am talking to Gen Xers, though. Us middle of the road, old young people, as I like to call us. Because we've seen the most change. We watched life go from analog to digital in a blink of an eye. I remember when having a black and white TV was normal. And now everything I can watch on my phone. I literally thought that we would end up like the Jetsons because that was the cartoon I grew up with. So I'm telling y'all, Gen Xers, y'all need to turn out. You're embarrassing me at this point. I have no excuse not to cast my ballot. I am on the permanent absentee ballot list now that I know that I can do that. I fill it out. I'd bring it to my polling place, which is 5 minutes away. I could stand in line, but I ain't risking COVID. Coronavirus is still a thing. I'm not risking it. I'm going to fill out my ballot for these midterms and make sure it gets tallied. I know the lady that works at the ballot place. She is a very thorough woman. She gets elected too. There is a lot that a lot of people don't realize, they don't know, and they don't care, and you need to start caring. Because if we have a state level structured, if we have legislators who want to get the job done, guess what? Build Back Better, and better than that gets passed. We get all those bills that you scream to want to be about. We get legislators who will work within their state systems to penalize police unions who don't take care of the issues they have with not only corruption, but outright lynching of black, brown, and native citizens. If you want results, you have to have action. That's what I said in that surprise Bonnet Chronicles on Tuesday. I don't trust any activist who thinks inaction is the same as action. I don't trust any activist who has the opportunity to sit at the table with the president and decides to protest instead. I don't trust any politician that sleeps on the steps in a freaking sleeper bag to protest renter stuff when you have a job that can actually draft legislation to help evictions. But we are in the viral times. It's a sad reality to this current era. It's not all hopes are lost, because for every dark age, there's a period of renaissance. For every dark age, there's a period of enlightenment. But we are really in viral times. There are a lot of frauds. There are a lot of phonies. There are a lot of people who are in it for their own lucrativeness. And we have to weed through their bullshit and do what's right. Honestly speaking, I can't trust anybody who's already talking about the midterms failing. I can't trust anybody who isn't coming up with a 4-year voter plan, because those people want the chaos. They want the destabilization. They think they'll be all right. But if the last 4 years before this administration took office didn't show you that it wasn't going to be all right, I don't know how to reach or message you. I don't understand the people who are far removed. I literally watched them put family members in a mass grave again. And as somebody who was a young child, almost preteen during the really bad height of the AIDS crisis, this isn't my first rodeo with a pandemic that people tried to downplay, that the conservatives tried to put on one group, and that ignored for too long. We should have been had medicine, and now we do for AIDS. But it's still not enough. And we could have had better if we had people in charge back then that believed in science. The conservatives have been consecutively and consistently showing you how awful they are for decades now. And I am tired of sitting by and letting them hold power. And I'm tired of watching people hand them the reins of power, because we cannot afford the losses of that. So if you like doom and gloom, if you like fear mongering, there you go. The GOP leadership is a death sentence for so many of us. The GOP is a restriction in rights, civil rights, religious practicing rights, right to our gender identity. I shouldn't have to beg people, but I will. I'm not so humble. I am a sociopath. I am far removed from emotion. I will beg you, vote. If you don't give a fuck about people like me, give a fuck about yourselves. Look at this pandemic. It feels unending. And the other side played a shitty hand with that. They downplayed it, told the people not to believe in science, don't believe in this vaccine, even though they were profiting off of it. I don't even understand the chess game the GOP was playing with COVID, but they are losing. And we are all losing, because they're clogging up hospitals, they're causing variants, and they're getting us sick. These are not the people that should be in charge. These are not the people who should be in positions where legislation should be pushed through. And there are plenty of them whose seats are coming up. So instead of staying home, or if you want to stay safe, find out your state's early ballot registration, absentee and mail-in ballot registration, and vote. It matters so much. I'm going to get ready to wrap this up, because I've literally been talking for an hour and a half. Honestly speaking, y'all, I really appreciate all of you. Seriously, respect. Reagan's era was a nightmare. That's why I get so chafed by people who rehabilitate his image to this hero. He wasn't no hero. People were living in cars under Reagan. New York was a battleground during the Reagan era. As a child, I remember riding the subway at your own risk. But people want to mythologically raise him up as this mythological president. He was a piece of shit. And our country's still suffering from his trickle-down economic bullshit. But like I said, y'all, it's been an hour and a half, and I really appreciate you tuning in. I've been talking about it with Axiom. It's not official yet, but I'm thinking we might add another night to these, simply because with the midterms coming, we have to keep ahead. We have to keep ahead of the narrative because the narrative is negative. The narrative is self-serving. The narrative panders to the microwave brains of some people that I need it now. Things aren't going fast enough. The Dems aren't fighting hard enough. We have to get ahead of that narrative, especially ahead of the midterm. So I'm thinking about it. I got to figure out what night would even work with school and everything. But honestly speaking, until the midterms are over, I really want to do my part to remind people of what elections are coming up, who's running, and all of that, because we have to stay on top of this. We can't trust those with the big platforms. They're too busy on a yacht in Cabo plotting and planning. So it's up to people like me who doesn't have a large platform but has a loud mouth and can very clearly state my goals to do this. So I will be keeping y'all updated on this. I'm really thinking it might be Tuesday nights, but I'm not sure yet. But I will be back next week. I love y'all, and I will definitely talk to you soon.